So this was a perspective kind of like from the company side of view, like, how can we go to our corporate leaders and how can we do this as a company? But as individuals, what can we do? What can we do now? How do we advocate for ourselves? So our next speaker is gonna help us, give us some more skills on the next time you go for a job interview or you're switching roles, how do you advocate for yourself and for your own salary and for what you deserve and what you have a right to earn? And so our next speaker is Skeete Tatum. She's the CEO and founder of a technology platform called Landit that helps women get more access to amazing work and succeed in the workplace. And Lisa and I have continued to see each other at multiple events recently. We just keep running into each other at the same event, so we're running in the same circles, and I'm really honored to have her here. She's also an Aspen Fellow. She's an MBA from Harvard. She just has this tech-funded startup. It's really amazing, and she's working real hard because I'm telling you, this woman is flying all over the place. So I'm really honored that she's here with us today, and she's going to help us learn how to negotiate our salary. So please give a warm welcome to Lisa.
Thank you so much for that great warm. So just a little bit about Landit, because then you'll understand why I am standing in front of you here today. So as you heard, we create a personalized playbook for each and every person seeking to move their career forward. And we started out by looking at the millions of women who will find themselves at an inflection point, whether they're in a great company, just trying to figure out how to more successfully navigate, maybe feeling a little stuck, which is where I was, and not quite sure how to get out of it. And realizing that as you progress in your career, the more challenging it becomes, so much so as we sit here today, largest number of professional, educated women, not firing on all cylinders, not getting paid what they want, but of course they want to be. And on the other side, you have great companies saying, I value diversity. It's no longer a nice to have, it's a must have. But I need a way to invest in the retention, development, and progression. So we knew that we could use technology to solve this massive market failure. So our big audacious goal, because I'm all about being big and audacious, is to democratize career success. And like every startup, it starts with a personal pain point. So I'm a chemical engineer by training, still gives me street cred with my teenage boys. They still think I'm a little bit smart. And ultimately ended up becoming a healthcare technology VC. And I found myself at an inflection point. And I was trying to figure out what was next. I didn't know what that looked like. Everyone expected me to know. It felt really pretty awful, because you all know that there's a social cost to admitting you don't have it all figured out. So many times we suffer in our work and we don't ask for what we need. So I said, we're going to do something about it, because there are millions of us. I want to unlock that talent. So I combined forces with my classmate, Sheila Marcello, who some of you may have used her services of care.com, and we said we're going to go after this with scale, urgency, and metrics. And we're going to open up that playbook and give everyone the access and the tools that they need to succeed. And then the crap hit the fan, because I went from check writer to check asker, and it is hard. If you think negotiating salary is hard, raising money is probably equally as hard. So much so that Vanity Fair had to do a spread to say, gosh, there are only 27, oh, well, thank you. That there are only 27 women of color that have raised over $1 million. Now, the great thing is they're shining a light on it. The bad news is we all fit on one paper, right? But it's a good one, right? So we partner with amazing companies that get it, right? Who are committed to making work for everyone. Because as was mentioned earlier, there's a diversity dividend, right? So when you have women, they are bringing their full selves, there's a dividend to that. When you have people of color, there's a 35% dividend, right? So this is the right thing to do, but it is an economic imperative. So what we're going to talk about today is this pain point, which is you have the skills, you have the track record, you have the motivation. You may not know where to start, and you may not know what you don't know. And even if you did, you may not have the access, right? Because sometimes this is how the world can appear for us, right? Like you're carrying a little something extra. In the case, I have two boys who are over 6 feet tall, so I'm really carrying a little extra, right? Or maybe that chasm is too big, right? And you're not quite sure how you're going to close it, right? So our secret sauce is taking technology to level the playing field, taking what people at the top of the pyramid know and giving that to everyone, getting your tentacles to more folks, and kind of this one-size-fits-one at scale. So it's about giving you what you need when you need it, because that's how you land it. And that's what we're going to talk about today when it comes to salary and other negotiation. So we're going to do a poll, but we're going to do it by hand. I know you're going to be honest, and don't lie, because I know what the numbers are, because I do this all over the place. Okay? So how many of you have negotiated your salary by show of hands in the last 12 months? Okay, not bad. Let's see if you're telling the truth. Because 57% of men negotiate their salary, but only 7% of women do the same. Okay? So how much money do you think is left on the table if you don't negotiate? So by show of hands, how many think it's $20,000? Yeah, so if you did not negotiate over your lifetime, how much money are you leaving on the table? Oh, yeah. I love this group. How many think it's 50K? How about 500K? How about $1 million? Dang straight, it's a freaking million, right? So say you're making 45, that's your job offer, right? And person A negotiates for 5,000 bump and 4% raise, okay? And then the next person just takes it, right? Over your life, it's $1 million, and that's at 45K. But some people say, gosh, is it worth it? Right, the political hit for speaking up for myself? Well, I'd say it is. So say you had a $100,000 job offer, and you get 107, right, just $7,000 more, and the other person just takes the 100, okay? You would have to work 8 more years, right, 8 more years to reach parity, okay? Last question. You want to raise, don't we all? You do your homework, and we're going to talk about why that's important, and you discover that if you just increase your salary by 8%, you would be on parity. How many believe you should go to your manager and ask for the 8% by show of hands? Okay, what the rest are you going to do? Okay, okay, this is tricky. Yeah. All right, now I don't know if you don't have your hands up for the right reason, but the reason you don't ask for 8% is because you could be worth more. Right? 8% is just your starting point, right? So don't anchor yourself low. Okay? So the importance of negotiating. You must negotiate, because if you don't, you signal to the world that not only can you not advocate for yourself, you can advocate for others, right? And you run the risk of never, ever catching up, right? That gap will increase over time. And as we talked about, right, there's a huge pay gap. What I want companies to do is stop talking about the journey of closing the gap. It's the frickin' law, right? You just need to get there, right? We need to stop letting people off the hook, right? But negotiation is not about getting what's fair. So I want you to edit that word out of your vocabulary. It's not about getting what's fair, right? It's about getting the worth and the value for the value that you bring to the table, right? So it's a different mind shift. And when you shift that mind, then when you go in, you're going to have a completely different stance. And stop thinking about it about that hour, because it's not about that hour, right? It's about what are you doing the other 364 days and 23 hours that will determine if you're successful in that hour when you go in, right? But never fear, because no one is born a superb negotiator. I'm an engineer, so I like, give me the recipe, I like that. There is actually a couple of steps that you take before, during, and after. So 6 things to do before. But first, by show of hands, and don't lie, how many of you keep track of your weekly accomplishments? All right now. That means you take 1 or 2 minutes and write it down. Okay, 93% of people don't do it. And it's the most compelling and scale-tipping thing that you can do. So the number one thing you're going to do is you're going to keep track of your accomplishments. And that may be something you do for yourself, something you contribute at work, maybe building your brand, etc. The reason you have to do this is because if you don't, you suffer from LIFO, last in, first out. And if you don't have a list of your accomplishments, no one else is going to be your own best advocate. Not to mention, particularly ladies and people of color, you want to keep a check on those housekeeping projects, right? Because if you're here and someone else is here, that gap is probably because not only do you have a brand gap or a sponsorship gap, you're working on things that are not central to the business, right? So you got to do that. Number 2, cultivate criticism, not praise, right? When you go into that room, it should not be a surprise what you do well and what you don't do well. So if you don't get that feedback karetsu around you, you are at risk because you are less likely to get the feedback that you need. And I'll be happy to tell you guys later about 2 well-known tech CEOs who said, thank you for saying what I won't say, because people think they work really, really hard and that's what matters, and that's actually not how the world works, right? So you got to get that feedback. Okay. Number 3, you have to do your research, right? It's not taboo to know what you're worth. So you have to go to the sites, and ladies in particular, you got to talk to people, right? Men typically don't have an issue with talking about salary, but women do. When I was a venture capitalist, if I didn't talk to people, I would have been I wouldn't even been on the registration map of salary, right? So you got to talk about it. And you got to understand your HR policies, because most companies have salary bands. And I'm here to tell you, no one puts the lowest number in their budget because they don't want to go back and ask for more money. So why the heck are you asking for less money, right? You want to anchor high. Okay. Number 4, know the right time to negotiate. For some companies, maybe it's once a year, right? Or maybe there's a big event. Or maybe you just did something badass, right? And now it's time to go in there, right? Or maybe you're presented with another opportunity. And it's not that you're shopping it, but maybe it's like, gosh, I really love it here. This opportunity came up. What can we work on, right? So timing sometimes is everything. Number 5, be strategic, right? I think a lot of people fail because they just go in with full of emotion. No, you gotta have a strategy down cold, right? So you're coming prepared not only for that 1 hour, but you're negotiating a base for what's gonna come after that, right? So what do you need in the next position? Title, salary, resources, right? You gotta think beyond that 1 hour. It's like begin with the end in mind. I always tell people win first and then figure out how you're gonna get there, okay? And then many companies are indifferent, whether it's salary or other benefits. And again, anchor high, but you can't anchor high if you don't do your research, right? So you gotta talk to people, you gotta do your research. And then you gotta have your FU BATNA, right? So your best alternative to no agreement, right? So if you don't have a strong alternative, if you don't have social currency, then you're not gonna go into a negotiation with a nuclear stance, right? So you have to know what your best alternative is to no agreement so you know the meter of your strength. And number 6, the personal. A lot of people like to ignore this, but it's important, right? So if you get nervous before you are going into these meetings, I tell my kids, practice to your locker. You need to practice out loud. And memorize your first 2 lines so when you go in there, you're not stumbling and a bumbling idiot and then you never catch your footing, right? So practice how you're gonna go in strong. And believe that you have value because it will come through in your body language, in the decibel of your voice. Okay, so now you're in the room. That's what you're gonna do. First, you're gonna come in with your own self-evaluation because you're now all gonna keep track of your accomplishments and you're gonna have them either on your phone or whatever. I print them out. You're gonna have them right there, okay? And you're gonna have your sleeves off your vest list because you've done your homework, you know what's important to the person across the table, and you know what's important to you. So you're going to pre-populate on a sheet of paper or on your phone, whatever, the things that you're willing to give. And you're gonna have your research down cold. I keep underlining it because it's all about preparation. How can you negotiate in the blind? Okay, and then you're gonna never stop proving your worth. And by this I mean, you don't go in and say, I want this and this and this. It is, I love it here. And I'm so glad that I got a chance to work on this project and X happened. And now I'm so excited to figure out how we can work on this salary plan together. And I can't wait for what I'm gonna do next year, right? You're proving your worth. Okay, but ask for what you want beyond money. Because sometimes, especially I'm a startup, we don't always have a ton of cash. So what are some of those other things that are meaningful for you? Okay, maybe it's title. Maybe it's flex time. In fact, I just hired someone last year. It was all about the title. And that's fine, because I can do that all day long. You can do cash all day, but that I can do all day long. Or maybe it's options. Okay? And then be concise. Do not come in rambling. Nobody wants to hear it. They'll shut off before you even start talking, right? So have your 3 points. No more than 3, because the human brain can't process more than 3 that you want to cover, and why. Okay? And then your nonverbal communication, right? Don't walk in with that proverbial wimpy handshake. Don't be sitting at the table kind of laid back, right? You want to be forward and in the mix because you mean business, right? And we're talking about your future and what you are valued at, right? And then are you listening, right? Because if you listen, people will tell you what's important to them and you want to key in on that so then you can then know how to respond. Okay, and handle criticism like a pro because there's not going to be any surprises because you now know what you do well and what you don't. But if someone does say something cray-cray, and they will, you're not going to give them the WTF look, right? You're not going to do that, and you're not going to get emotional. You're going to save that for your best friend where you can do the ugly cry with the snot, but in that meeting, you're not going to do that, right? But it is your job to ask questions and get feedback. If you ask for something you don't get it, if you leave that room not knowing it, you're a fool, right? You have to know. You have to ask. You have to seek to understand. And if things are great, you have to know what you have to keep doing, because again, it's beyond just that 1 hour. And then you want to articulate the value that you're going to continue to bring after you leave that room. Now, one of the biggest advantages you can have is be okay with silence, right? Don't feel like you have to solve the problem for someone. Well, Lisa, I'm not sure if I can do that because, right? Just look at them, right? You don't have to fill the air, right? That's not your job. Okay? 4 things you're not going to do. It's not about making it personal. This is not about your trip to Cancun or your new stove or what's fair, right? It's not personal, right? It's about value. Okay? He or she who gives the first number will absolutely lose, right? So do not put out that first number. You're going to know what you're worth, you're going to know what you're shooting for, but you're not going to lead with that. Okay? And then don't accept on the spot if it's not comfortable. The best negotiators take 2 times as long to come to an agreement. So maybe it's getting heated. You don't say, gosh, can we talk another time? It's like, why don't we talk on Friday, right? Or on Monday. But don't feel like you have to accept on the spot if it's not comfortable, or if it's not where you want to be, or you need to go process. Okay? And then what you did in the past has absolutely nothing to do with your value today. So do not allow yourself to be anchored to what you made in the previous position. Right? And if you see me later, I can give you some phrases. I know this comes up a lot. And actually more states have this as a law. And you can imagine if you start out low, you're never going to catch up. So don't get in this trap. Okay? 3 things you're going to do afterwards, because people forget. That's actually the most important part, right? So first, you're going to come out with a set of next steps. Lisa, this is what you do great. Lisa, maybe this is what you need to work on. Or maybe I can't give it to you now, but I'll give it to you later if you show X, Y, and Z. And then you're going to go and you're going to put that plan in place. And then you're going to check in so that you're not blindsided the next time if you don't get what you want, right? Very, very strategic, really, really important. Okay, number 2, you're going to get visible. And you're going to make sure that you are aligned with the company goals and you're not working on those housekeeping projects that are going to derail you because you don't know how to say no. Okay? And then you're going to take risk. So if you are cruising in that green zone and everything's comfortable, nothing magical happens there. No sponsorship, no raise, no opportunities. You don't want to be in the red cray-cray zone. You want to feel a little bit of stretch, right? So if you're currently operating and things are cruising, you need to get out of that green zone. Okay? But long term, if you want to reach your goal, you have to invest in your brand and your board. And by that, I mean the following. Personal brand is what people say and think about you that makes them want you in the room. I value Jane so much that I'm going to do what it takes because I need her on the team, right? And what opens up the opportunities you want, not the ones you fall into, not the ones you get by default, not the one that someone's just going to give you as a token, but because they value you, they're going to move mountains to make sure they can keep you. Okay? And hard fact, if you think I'm lying, personal brand happens to you. Everyone has a personal brand. My 14 to 16-year-old have a brand. I tell them that when they step out of the house. Don't be acting crazy because you have a brand, right? The question is, are you going to cultivate it or are you going to let it happen to you? Because your brand is your currency. Number 2, think about getting your squad in order, right? Stop putting it at your mentor's feet, right? So this is your group that's all committed to your success. And it's who's putting the extra weight on your scale, which is really, really important, particularly someone mentioned before. If you're an introvert or an ambivert in a world that's built for extroverts, you had better get that squad in order, right? So think about your mentor, your sponsor, your connector, your point expert, your close friend. But the most important when it comes to money is that sponsor. So if you have a sponsor, you will accrue a 22 to 30% benefit. If you're a person of color, it is 65%, right? Really, really important, really important. Because ultimately, your network is your net worth. So in summary, 10 quick points. Just give me like that look. Number 1, know and own your contributions, right? You're going to have to learn to make sure that everyone knows. If the only person that knows you're doing a good job is your immediate boss, you're at risk. Because that person may lose their seat at the table, right? So you got to know and you got to make sure people know. 2, you have to believe in that worth. Some people may not have confidence. Don't wait for that. Fake it till you make it, right? But when you go in there, you're going to go in confident. You're going to do your homework, right? And you're going to focus on results, not emotion. Save the emotion for your mom and your dad and your partner, et cetera. But in that room, you're a badass, okay? You're going to have your strategy down cold. You're not going to just walk in there kind of willy-nilly. You're going to know what you're asking for, where you're going, and what you're batting at, right? Your FU point is, and what you are shooting for in terms of your sleeves off your vest. You're going to practice, 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 because you're going to go in, you're going to be concise, you're going to have your 3 points, okay? And you're going to have the courage to make the ask for what you want. Don't get the first number, but you're going to have the courage. Okay? And you're going to think creatively beyond just salary. Right? You're playing the long-term game. And you're going to follow up, right? That's where the number 1 place people fall down. You're going to follow up so you know what to do. And then you're going to keep building the case for your future, right? You may have social currency today, maybe not tomorrow. And lastly, cultivate that brand and that network. And I'm not going to even give the assignment because I know I'm over. But I will just leave this up here as I'm sashaying off. Risk is reward. So think about the risk you're not taking. Ask yourself what's the worst could happen. Can you live with that? And if you can't, who do you need to help you get it in place? Thank you very much.